All right. Welcome to Community Development's Learning Lab. Our presentation today is Code Enforcement 101, presented by Code Enforcement Officers Scott Melville and Sydney Valere. Please put your phones on silent. Save your questions until the end, where we'll have a Q&A section. CVTV is recording this Learning Lab, and it will be available on CVTV and on our website. When this is muted, all the mics are muted. I'm going to undo it now. How do I switch? Just use the space bar. Cool.
All right, hello everyone. We are going to be covering code enforcement and what it is. My name is Sydney Valere. I'm a code enforcement officer. So our first slide, what is code enforcement? So code enforcement is a function within community development. Our goal is to protect the safety and welfare of residents in Clark County. It promotes and preserves community livability and creates greater community pride and higher property values. Meet the team. So Donna Goddard is our lovely manager. Scott Melville right here is the code enforcement officer for National Pollutant Discharge Elimination System. I'm Sydney Valere. I'm a code enforcement officer. I cover the East County. Robert Osborne is the other code enforcement officer. He covers the North County, and Sarah Simpson is our office assistant. So what we enforce. There's three main categories that we, at least I and Robert, enforce in code enforcement. So the first is going to be zoning codes. So this is going to be home businesses, people running businesses off of their homes if they operate in violation of the home business ordinance or they operate without a home business permit, then it would be a zoning violation. Operation expansion of commercial businesses. That can be businesses moving into buildings without a TI permit, or a business moving onto a site without converting it to a commercial use and not having approved site plan review and approval, or just expanding their business without the proper permits. Structures located in the setback, so structures located too close to the property line. Before building or placing a structure on your property, I always recommend making sure you know what your setbacks are, so that you don't place it too close to the property line and then have to move it later. Occupied recreational vehicles. So RVs are only allowed to be occupied for 30 days consecutively or 60 days throughout a calendar year. And then auto wrecking and repair in the urban growth area. We do enforce on this in the rural zones. It just is not allowed at all in the urban growth area on residential properties, so it's a bit more relevant in what we do. The next category is building codes. So this would be structures built without permits, houses, accessory structures, sheds, anything like that. Remodel of house and accessory structures, patio covers and decks, fences over 7 feet high, and re-siding, re-roofing, and re-windowing houses. A lot of people don't know this, but if you re-window, re-roof, re-side a structure that requires a permit or a house, it does require a permit. Nuisance codes. So this would be junk and debris. In the urban growth area, you're allowed to have less than 1 cubic yard of debris on your property. More than that is a violation. The rural zone is 2 cubic yards or more within the side and front yard. Inoperable vehicles on private property. In the urban growth area, you cannot have any inoperable vehicles on your property. The rural zones is going to be 2. Vehicles parked in the front lawn. This only applies to the urban growth area. Grass and nuisance weeds over 12 inches in height. That also just applies to the urban growth area. And garbage cans left out after trash day. So non-code enforcement complaints. So we do not enforce on residential noise complaints such as barking dogs, loud music, etc. Roosters in the urban growth area. If you have a complaint, you are welcome to let animal control know. They can assist with that. Vehicles parked on public streets. That would be Clark County Sheriff's Office that can assist with that. Private roads and easements. So if your neighbor is, doing something on your private road, or they built a road approach onto a private road, that would be a civil issue, not something we can assist with. Homeless camps on public property and trees growing over property lines. That also is a civil issue. Again, we can help with blackberry bushes or things like that if it's a nuisance weed, but trees we cannot assist with. All right, so here are some examples of things that we cannot help with. Playing lost music at 11 p.m. bald gentleman goes there several times a day to feed and photograph the crows. If you are concerned about an animal, you are always welcome to contact animal control, but this complaint is not something we can help with. Tons of fishermen, like 25 plus, coming to fish for salmon at this time of year. That could be, Fish and Wildlife that could help with that. Nothing we can do. And there is one place to make sports wagers in Clark County for 500,000 people. Blank you, and you suck as a government. I can't help with that at all. So how we enforce. So code enforcement is a complaint-generated program. The majority of our complaints are going to be from private citizens. That can be anonymously or with someone reporting as a party of record. We do not survey looking for violations, so we're not driving around. If we see junk in someone's yard, we won't pull over and just open a case unless it's an outright life safety violation, so maybe a dangerous structure, something like that. And we do sometimes receive complaints from, like, if a building inspector is not able to get someone to have a permit or something like that, we can get internal complaints. We focus on voluntary compliance. Our goal is education before enforcement. We always want to get compliance on a case. We don't want to have to enforce. That's not our goal. That is something that we can utilize if we need to, but we do want to work with people to get their properties into compliance. And we do work with property owners on timelines. We understand that not everything can be done in 30 to 60 days. We all have lives, things happen. So we are understanding of that. There is enforcement when necessary. So if we are unable to reach compliant, there is an assessment of civil penalties that can be up to $500 a day per violation. Also the placement of a lien against the property or citations when deemed necessary. So this is kind of a graph that shows our enforcement process. So we start with a complaint. We'll receive a complaint again from the public or possibly from someone in-house. Education is our first step, so we will conduct a site investigation and inform the property owners of the code and requirements. This will be followed up with a first violation letter with a code citation and compliance schedule. With no violation, the case is closed. So if we go back out there and the violation is no longer there, we'll close it. Or if there's no violation when we go out there the first time, we'll close the case. So property owner can bring their property into compliance and end the process. Case closed. If we do not have compliance after that first inspection, we will sometimes send a second violation letter with a compliance schedule. Again, if we come into compliance, case closed. Without compliance, code enforcement will send a notice and order to the property owner. The property owner can appeal this order to the hearings examiner within 10 days. Again, if we reach compliance, case closed. There is the option for an appeal if you do not agree with that notice and order. The appeal granted, case closed, or appeal denied and property owner given new compliance schedule. And then after that notice and order, if we still do not receive compliance, then there are civil penalties placed against the property. So failure to comply with the final order will result in the penalties. These will be filed as a lien against the property. Upon compliance, penalties stop compounding, a settlement is negotiated and paid, and then the case is closed. Sorry, I talk loud. If we issue a notice and order, we do not get compliance, we issue an intent to file a lien and we do not get compliance and the lien is placed, and then we do not come into compliance with that lien, there is the option for prosecutorial referral, in which we will refer the case to the prosecuting attorney to obtain a civil judgment against the property owner, which could possibly lead to the abatement with cost recovery against the property owner. So this is our enforcement timeline for nuisance complaints. It's going to be a little quicker than a building or a zoning complaint, just because it's normally things that are easier to obtain compliance on. So we'll go out and do our inspection, send a postcard with a compliance date of 2 weeks to 30 days, progress letter if the site is improved. If the site hasn't improved or we aren't able to get compliance with the property owner in the timeline we agreed upon, it will be the issuance of a notice and order with $125 daily fines that will begin accruing. Then if we do not reach compliance by the time after that notice and order is sent, it is intent to file lien with a final date set, and then if compliance is not achieved, final lien. And then this is kind of a example of our postcards that people receive. So the enforcement timeline on building and zoning, like I said, it's a bit longer. So we have a first letter that goes out 30 days. Hey, this is what you need to do. Please apply for this permit or whatever you need to do in 30 days. If we do not get compliance by that date or someone contacting us wanting to set up a timeline for compliance, we'll send a second letter, another 30 days. At that point, we will issue the notice and order. That's going to be 250 to 500 daily fines. Again, intent to file a lien if we don't get compliance, and the final placement of a lien. So we get our complaints two different ways. They can be anonymous or party of record. So anonymous complaints are going to be when you file a complaint, you don't have to have your name on the file. It can be, again, anonymous. The violation must be visible from the roadway or a public area. So if your neighbor has a ton of broken down cars in his backyard, but there's trees all around the property and I can't see it and you're anonymous, the case is going to be closed out because we have no way to verify that violation. So it's important to be detailed in these. If it's kind of a specific complaint or maybe we need to look somewhere specific to see it, let us know because we can't contact you for follow-up. And then there's party of record. It's important to know that all information is going to be subject to a public records request. So if you put your information on that file, they may be able to do a public records request to get that information. This is sometimes helpful though, because we can follow up for additional information. So if we need more proof that a home business is occurring or auto wrecking or something like that, or we can't see it from the roadway, we can contact you to get more information, do a site inspection from your property or anything like that. All right, how to file an anonymous complaint. So you'll just look up Clark County Code Enforcement. I always do this second link. Here is our main page for reporting a neighborhood concern. Scroll all the way to the bottom. And then that's the public disclosure information. Important to read that. All right, click on report a neighborhood concern. And then you will scroll all the way to the bottom of this page. It's kind of sometimes can be hard to find, and click on report a neighborhood concern anonymously. So complaint description, again, be detailed. The more information we have, the better. So debris throughout property, inoperable blue Honda parked on the front lawn for a month. Complaint type, if you don't know the complaint type, doesn't matter. Just choose any of them and we can fix it. Address or parcel, and then click on the address line. Any additional information, again, if it's visible from somewhere that maybe we wouldn't know to look or someplace that you think that we need some more information, add that there. And then you can add photos if you want to add additional information. Again, this is all subject to public records requests. So if you do add photos, the people will be able to get that information. And then enter the little code. Make sure everything looks good. You can't edit it once you've submitted it. I have to fix the code. It took me a while. All right, and then that is going to be your complaint number right there. So you're welcome to call us, and if you want an update on that complaint, that would be your complaint number. And that is that. And okay, so here's how to file a complaint as party of record. So to do it as party of record, you will need an LMS account. If you need assistance with that, you can always let us know. We can point you in the right direction for help on that. So you will sign in on the same webpage. And again, here's registering if you don't have an account. And then it'll be that second one down on the left, report a neighborhood concern. And this will show you any other complaints that you filed under your activities. Same thing, complaint description, complaint type, be as detailed as possible. So my neighbor is conducting an auto repair business. He has 20 to 30 cars at his property at all times. I have photos, videos of the work. So that'd be a zoning violation. Again, add the address. And you will click on the line that the address is shown on, location description, if there's anything additional. So in this case, you can view the property from my house. Please call me. And we will contact RPs most of the time, even if they don't request that, just so that we have, a point of contact. Supporting files, if you have any photos, videos, anything that you want to add. And then start upload. Okay. Make sure everything looks good. And then submit complaint. And again, your email or phone number, whatever you provide on your LMS account, will be attached to this, so we can contact you if we need additional information. And then your complaint number will be right there. It will eventually get changed to a CF number when we make it a case, so that number might change, but we can always look up that complaint number, and then it will show under My Activities. And it'll be in review because we haven't changed it to a case yet. Okay. So I have some before and after photos to kind of show you what we do at code enforcement. These are all going to be nuisance photos because it's kind of hard to show before and after of a building permit. So here's before, lots of inoperable vehicles, debris, etc. Here's after. Here's another before, again, inoperable vehicles, debris, etc. It's an after. Before. In this case, because this is parked along the right-of-way, we don't actually have enforcement abilities over that, but they just happen to clean it up as well. And here's another one. A lot of discarded items outside, furniture, fridges. Another one, a lot of debris, big pile of debris in the corner, just trash bags stacked up. After, before, and after. That's our boss's favorite one. So you have a code enforcement case. So the most important thing to do is contact us. Communication is key. If you are working to do something or you need more time and you don't call us, we have no way of knowing that. So we're going to move forward with our enforcement process in the way we normally do. So if you call us when you get that postcard, you say, hey, this came up, I don't have time, I need 2 more weeks, 30 more days. We can work with you on that time frame. We just have to hear from you to know that. Additionally, if you have contacted the Permit Service Center, they're really wonderful about letting us know if a case has come in. Sometimes people won't let them know, oh, I have a code enforcement case, this is why I'm here, and so we aren't looped in on that. So make sure that we are part of that conversation, because if you're talking to the Permit Service Center and not us, we won't always know that, and then we won't know that you're working to resolve the issue. Do you need more time? Reasonable extensions can be given. So again, if you need more time, we understand life happens, things are expensive, permits take time, let us know and we can work with you. Possible assistance, there is the option for abatement vouchers to help with debris on the property. That's kind of a case-by-case basis. And project vehicle forms, you are able to have 1 project vehicle on each property. It gives you 6 months to actively be fixing the vehicle up, so that's also something that you can ask for. All right, that is my part. And the next will be environmental code enforcement by Scott.
Whoop. Howdy, I'm Scott Melville. I'm the National Pollutant Discharge Elimination System Code Enforcement Officer, which means I do environmental code enforcement anywhere dirt and water meet. That's where I'm going to be. So the things that I enforce are erosion control ordinance, habitat ordinance, forest practices, wetlands, grading, shoreline, and stormwater. My process is actually very similar to what Sydney and Robert do. Everything is from a public complaint or a complaint from wetland and habitat staff. State and federal agencies can also complain to us, and other inspectors who are out in the field. Again, everything is from a complaint. The erosion control ordinance, first things to look for are construction access to minimize tracking. So you'll put rock down to chunk up on the wheels of vehicles on your project. Make sure you don't track it out into the road. You stabilize denuded soils with mulch. That can be that It's allowed 2 days in our wet season, October through April, 7 days from May to September. As long as you're working the site, though, we're not going to make you put mulch down on that. You protect water bodies and adjacent properties from sediment. Remove sediment from roadways. That can be daily. It can be more than daily. Depends on the project and the intensity of it. Maintenance of all erosion control best management practices, whether that's silt fences, straw wattles, that bio bags, that sort of thing. And then vegetation is actually the single best erosion control measure because it doesn't expose dirt, does not allow sediment to flow off the site. Some examples of some erosion control, the green thing here is actually when they put in the amphitheater and they put down miles of silt fence, put down hundreds of cubic yards of mulch and weed control. And then again, what I'm looking for is if I see something like that Bear Pond, I'm going to make them stabilize that. Again, tracking stuff out onto the road is a no-no. We want that to be cleaned every day and more often if necessary. The habitat ordinance, it's to protect environmentally fragile fish and wildlife habitat areas. Permits are required for most clearing activities within habitat areas. Habitat areas can be based on species, can be based on riparian, meaning riverine or pond areas, and it can be based on biodiversity corridors, which are areas where there's fragile environment and we want to protect that habitat. If it's within the ordinary high water mark of a river, that is controlled by Fish and Wildlife. We control bank to bank, or outside the banks, they control bank to bank, meaning anything in the water. Commercial logging is also requires a forest practices application that can be issued by the state, can be issued by the county. It depends on what the project is. Again, habitat can be various things. Riparian areas, there are rankings of the types of waters, whether it's a shoreline stream, whether it's a fish habitat stream, whether it's a perennial stream, or even a seasonal stream. All of these have setbacks in which you can do work with a permit, but it does require the permit. It can be anywhere from 75-foot buffer to a 250-foot buffer. It depends on the type of water we're talking about. Again, species is another protected part of the habitat. That can be things like black-tailed deer, bald eagles. It depends on where that is. And then priority habitat, that whole biodiversity area. Forest practices can range from minor to major. Conversion from non-forestry use to non-forestry use from a forestry use is what the county mostly does. If you're logging a project and you log more than 5,000 board feet, which is a full truckload, and you're selling that off, that does require a permit. But a lot of the forest practice now is pretty much unregulated. Wetlands, the goal is no net loss of wetland acreage or functions. There are various ratings on them. Buffers range from 300 down to 50 feet, depending on what type of wetland it is. Pre-existing ag's use or structures are exempt. So if you have a historic farm and it's in a wetland, you can still farm that. You can't expand the footprint of that. There are various triggers for wetland permitting: subdivision, short plats, or site plan approvals. All of those, if that's within a wetland, does require review. If grading is done over 50 cubic yards, that requires review in a wetland. Construction of a structure in a wetland, or clearing which alters the nature of the wetland, those all require permits. Grading, it's dependent upon the yardage that and the zoning and acreage that you're in. Grading means importing, exporting, or just moving stuff around, changing the landform in any way. On urban lots that are less than 1 acre, you're allowed 50 cubic yards without a permit. Anything over that does require a permit. Over an acre in the urban areas, it's 100 cubic yards, which is 10 full dump truck loads. So that's quite a bit of volume on something as small as an acre. Rural lots, if it's less than 5 acres, that also is allowed for 100 cubic yards. Rural lots that are greater than 5 acres, you're allowed 200 cubic yards. More grading issues, if it's over 1,000 cubic yards, it requires what they call the SEPA permit, the State Environmental Policy Act. That means we send it out to various agencies, they review it and make comments on that project. If it's over 5,000 cubic yards, it does require an engineered grading plan. Anything else, you can just do it on basically a napkin. If it's over 5,000, you actually have to have an engineer involved. All land disturbing activities require erosion prevention and control. That means if you're on a 5-acre piece and you've disturbed something in the middle, that does technically require erosion control. Ag grading requires a permit unless we're doing soil amendments. So if you're bringing in lime or topsoil or that sort of thing, does not require a grading permit, but if it's just dirt and you're changing the landform on your ag grading, that does require a grading permit as well. Shoreline is probably our most complex and most involved process. It's I believe it's 20 plus cubic feet per second of water volume coming through. Shoreline creeks are extremely well controlled. That'd be places like Salmon Creek, the Lewis River, Washougal River, those sorts of high volume rivers do require permitting for almost any activity. There's a minimum 200-foot setback, or it's the limit of the 100-year floodplain. So if the floodplain extends out 500 feet, the setback is 500 feet, meaning anything within that does require shoreline permitting. It's actually, we are only part of the review of shoreline permitting. Department of Ecology actually issues the permit. We make recommendations on that, but it is up to them to figure it out. This one can take several years in the process because of the complexity, both with consultants and with the state agencies. Stormwater, the idea is to protect swales, ponds, and ditches from being overwhelmed for what they're engineered for. On rural properties, anything over 5% of new impervious surface does require stormwater engineering. In the urban area, that's 2,000 square feet. Anything that is new, impervious, does require stormwater review. Things like if you're converting from gravel to asphalt, gravel is considered an impervious tops of or surface. So if you're just paving that over, does not require stormwater review because it's not new impervious surface. These are some of the agencies that I work with and that give me feedback and give me complaints. Department of Ecology, Fish and Wildlife, Army Corps of Engineers, the Clark Conservation District, and Public Health. So that is an overview of what I do.
All right, everyone, this is the Q&A section. Please use the mic to ask your questions. When you use the mic, you'll press the button to turn it on. And so we'll begin.
Sarah.
For the nuisance violations, like say I had someone come and dump like trash on my property, is that considered a violation, or is that the homeowner's responsibility to pick that up, or where would I get help for that?
So that would still be a violation if it's on your property. You as the property owner are responsible for that. It would not be on the person that dumped it. You can also always contact the Clark County Sheriff's Office for illegal dumping, but ultimately that would be your responsibility to remove any of the trash that's on your property. That could be something that possibly a nuisance abatement voucher, we could give that to you for. Just depends on how much it is.
And similarly with issues with habitat or wetland, that sort of thing, if you've hired a contractor to do something and they did not get a permit, while you may want to chase after the contractor to make them do that, we're going to go to the property owner and say, you have to do this. You have to make sure that your contractor gets it or you get the permit.
And I will add to that, if that goes to buildings as well. Washington is a buyer beware state. So if somebody remodels their house or builds something without a permit on the property, and then we get a complaint, and let's say it happened 5 years ago and you weren't the one that did it, we will still require you to get a building permit, unfortunately, even if it wasn't you that did that work without a permit.
What if I had a neighbor that was doing work on their property for like a motocross track? Is that considered like a case for Sydney and Robert, or is that a Scott case?
Well, it could be both because it would be a zoning violation. So that's where we would come in to make sure that there's the right land use permits, to make sure it's an approved use. And then
if it's over the yardage that is allowed, depending on rural or urban zoning, then we would require a grading permit. If it's in habitat or wetland, we could require permits for that too. But a lot of times it's hard to see those. And that's another thing that we need to emphasize with code enforcement. If we can't see the violation from a legal vantage point, we cannot enforce anything. So if it's in the back 40 and we can't see it from a road or adjacent property that we're invited on, it is not a violation as far as we're concerned. Other questions? Okay.
Cool.
Thank you much.
Yeah.
Thank you for attending today's session, and thank you to our presenters. Our next topic will be on the property tax exemption program presented by the Assessor's Office. This is scheduled for the third Thursday of next month, which is going to be October 16th at 11 a.m., and we hope to see you there.